everybody. Welcome back to another edition of Relatable. I am your host, Stephanie Michele. This is the show where we talk about exceptional human encounters, the people who make them happen, and the actions that it takes to create them. So the theme of the day for me today is space, okay? Not outer space or not necessarily physical space, but more about making space and taking up space for things that you believe in. Now, the world is full of organizational systems. There are systems like capitalism, socialism, religious systems, human rights, environmental protections. These are all systems. They're complex systems of people, ideas, beliefs, actions, and rules. The yoga class that you go to and how you communicate are decisions informed by systems you choose to participate in. Some systems are desirable, some not so much. Navigating what's best for your well-being and knowing which systems to participate in and which ones you want to actively work on to changing is just, how we navigate life and what we need to do to have a really good life. My encouragement for today is for people to think about the systems that they're participating in and take up space, like a lot of space, in the things that are good for you and where you want to see change happen. Take up as much space as possible, learn as much as you can, and grow boldly in that space. Think of like a tree and like it's extending out in its branches. This is what we need to do, is take up more space. If you're watching live, here's the question for chat today. Where do you want to take up more space? Today, I am wearing another outfit by Eva Vera. I love this. This is like the third time that I've wore it, and it's probably intended to be more of a robe, but I've actually wore it as a dress, and I love it. And this is one of her signature prints. So if you go to her website, you can find prints like this, and pants and tops and things. And remember, if you use the promo code that she's issued for the show, it's RELATE20, you get 20% off your order. So go see Eva Vera website immediately to get cool stuff. My guest today has found a space that she passionately participates in, and that's a space that's occupied by many more women. Hensi Morris is joining us today. She's the president and founder of a national organization called Lipstick Sister. She has been the forefront of women's empowerment for over 10 years. Lipstick Sister is a platform that brings women together in the spirit of sisterhood, amen to that, and empowers women to be kind, respectful, tolerant, and supportive of one another. With over 15 years of experience in the public relations field, Hensi's ability to attract women from all walks of life has allowed Lipstick Sister to grow and evolve into a successful support system, say that fast, successful support system, where women gather to have real, meaningful conversation. Yes. You guys wondering why she's on? I doubt it after that statement, because how important that is to me. Hensi's mission is to continue to connect women in an authentic and diversified environment where the goal is always to improve spiritual and personal growth. Awesome.
Thank
yes,
you.
I love every part of that. I'm aligned to every single part of that.
Yes, you are.
Yeah, I know.
That's why we're here.
That's definitely why we're here. I loved our first conversation.
I do too.
Yeah. It was so awesome. So as I always share with the guests that I get to unload sometimes. Sometimes I'm ranting about something in the monologue. Not really ranting today, just feeling the need to spread out a little bit in space and time and encouraging people to do that. What's on your mind? Like, what's pulling your attention right now?
Being present.
Yeah.
I think it's really important for me to be really present and focused in whatever moment I'm giving my space to.
Yeah.
My space right now is to you, so I'm just in that very present moment of having amazing conversation, of connecting with another wonderful human being. That's the best part about what I do.
Yeah.
Is again having exceptional moments with exceptional women.
Yeah,
so
I appreciate that, and the space is yours right now.
Thank you.
Space is ours together. Space
it's
is
beautiful.
Dee's. We're in it together. Well, tell me a little bit about why you started Lipstick Sister. Like, what was really the motivation to start that?
I think for me it was a very personal space, because I was looking to connect with women in a more real, authentic, vulnerable way. I felt like a lot of the conversations or luncheons or events that I was participating in, at the end of the day, it was sort of very much about like your work, right? Like what you do for a living. everything was sort of very superficial most of the time, and I felt like I was in a place in my life where, you know, I had moved from Mexico City. I didn't really know a lot of people here, so I was really looking for more of like a family environment and a support system. And I was really surprised by how many women sort of put a wall up very fast the second that you take the conversation from what you do for a living into, you know, so tell me a little bit about yourself, and like, where do you come from, and blah. And that was shocking to me because I'm always very open. I've been my whole life. I don't feel like I have to hide anything, not where I come from or where I've been or anything. And so it was really shocking to me just to see that I was getting so much resistance from a lot of women that I was encountering through, again, events or meetups and stuff like that.
I mean, I would say that's a system, those are systems, right? Like, so we go to a certain event and it's maybe, you know, it's about fashion. So we can talk about our fashion, or we can talk about the work that we do. There's a lot of like networking or women's groups that's just about being a boss, you know? But as you know, like there's more to.
There's so much more.
To a woman, to a man, to anyone, than just that one thing. And so sometimes it doesn't feel comfortable to step out of that in those groups, and you get that kind of energy that you just talked about.
Well, I think it also comes from a place of not really knowing who you are outside of that particular one thing. And so for me, what I really wanted to do was that I wanted to expand myself into not just talking about what I did for a living and what I was really good at, but also, again, like, you know, about my background and about my experiences and about my story. And so I really needed to surround myself by women that were looking for the same thing. And that's basically what put me in this journey of, you know, researching, you know, groups and organizations and meetups and clubs and all that stuff. And what I found was that every club or organization that I was researching or reaching out to went back to the same thing. It was all based on one particular thing. And again, for me, I really wanted it to be where it didn't matter what you did for a living. It didn't matter if you were married or single, if you were a mom or not a mom, if you were entrepreneurial or not. I really wanted it to be about the women themselves. And that's kind of like what threw me in this whole journey.
And I think we talked about it, really the common ground is it's women that want to learn and grow, right? Like, it doesn't matter where you are, but if you're wanting to join something and be amongst other people, whether they're peers or mentors or just coming up in the world, like, it's just the common ground is like, we're growing together, like we're in this together.
And I think the problem that we do as women too is that because again, you know, we are born with insecurity and jealousy and envy and, you know, things that continue to make us not surround ourselves by the quality of women that we should be surrounding ourselves by. And it takes a lot of work and it takes a lot of growth to be in a space where you are so comfortable with who you are that you're okay with other women around you either having more or being more, and just by being grateful for the experience of having them as a human being by your side, right?
You mentioned when we talked that you've observed how sisters act together, and like you really wanted to mimic that. Talk to me about that. Like, what does sisterhood look like?
So
to
when
you?
I was trying to figure out what the title of it would be, I originally went to the sisterhood part because of what I shared. At the same time, I kind of wanted to stay away from it a little bit because of the whole sorority idealism that wasn't necessarily where I was going with. The sisterhood part came because I don't have sisters. I grew up with brothers, and the friends that I have that do have sisters, I've grown up just seeing not only how different they are physically, you know, like one's brunette and one's, you know, blonde and one has short hair and the other one long, but just how different they were as human beings, right? Like one was super feminine and super girly, the other one's more like, I don't care, and rockery. Yet, and I actually even saw how they bickered a ton, or they didn't like each other, or, you know, all this stuff. But at the end of the day, I was always so taken aback by how immediately they responded, you know, in solidarity and love when something bad happened. It always immediately went back to like, well, that's my sister. Like, I have to be there. You know, I have to do this because she's my sister. And I loved that. I always was very, very impressed by that. And again, me not having that, you know, part of my life as having that sister in my life, I was very drawn to that. So the sisterhood idea for me was you know, being with someone that doesn't necessarily share a common ground in the sense of maybe you don't like the same things or the same guy or the same style or the same, which for me, I rather have that because I feel like in diversity is where you find your strength and your growth.
Yeah, I agree. I think having people around you that don't necessarily believe what you believe is a way for you to challenge and be more informed about your own values and beliefs. The only line that I'll draw is like if you have people around you that are just hating on people that are like just that are doing hateful acts, like that's different. But to have someone say, well, you know, I feel this way about this, and it's not necessarily how I believe, like we need to have more space for that because that's actually how we learn and grow.
Absolutely, everybody has the right to their own opinion, their own beliefs. I don't encourage within the organization that we discuss too much when it comes down to politics or religion because I do feel that it is generally such a personal space and it's also a space that's very easily triggered. So I try to maintain those conversations where, you know, you can ask questions and you can ask, but like you said, it's got to be handled in a very polite, loving space.
Have you had to navigate some of those situations?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, of course. Not to a point where it has created animosity or where anybody has been like, well, I can't be a part of it, so that's how you feel. So not to that degree, but definitely we've had some instances. And like I said, at the end of the day, this is a space of tolerance. And again, we're not perfect. Nobody is. We're not expecting anybody to be perfect. I started this, I run this. I'm not perfect, so I definitely cannot expect anybody else to be.
Thank you for saying that.
You know, I have plenty of, you know, negative things that I could improve in and I hope to improve in.
Work in progress.
We're always work in progress until the day that you die. So yeah, those are tough conversations, but you still need to be open to listening and just kind of, you don't necessarily always have to give an opinion back or a comment back. I think sometimes it's just good to listen to see how somebody else feels about something that's so strong like religion or, you know, or politics, and just listen and acknowledge and be like, oh, well, thank you for sharing that. I appreciate you. I appreciate how you feel. I appreciate your thoughts. It gives me something to think about or something to like grow on.
I liked when you shared part of your structure, so the women meet once a month, and when you're together, a random question is answered.
I mean, the lunches will vary because I think it's also one of those things where you kind of have to wait and see what type of energy everybody shows up in. Sometimes we all show up and we just kind of want to be like carefree and just have a drink and chat and laugh and just be girls. Sometimes we show up and you can feel the energy that there's a lot of work, personal, you know, soulful work that needs to be done, and somebody really needs help for us to show up there emotionally. And so it'll be a very sort of like connected, deep emotional space. So it'll depend, but the questions for me were important because, again, as I was noticing through my past research, how people reacted when I asked a specific question, and immediately, if they were not ready or they were not in the space to just freely be like, oh yeah, blah, 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 then it was this sort of like immediate, right? There's like, why are you asking me that, right? And like, and what did you hear, or why? What? So the question became very personal, and I wanted it to make sure that if they did receive a question, that they realize that the question is not being specifically directed at you. It's just a question. So we just want to know how you feel about that particular question. It could go to anybody. And so the random questions, I do them because of that, because I don't want anybody ever to be like, well, why are you asking me this question?
I love it. I mean, we started the show when we were using table topics. I have a little book of questions I'll share with you afterwards too.
That's actually what we use, the table topics and
And the point was just like, we would do this, and now we use the dice to kind of have more of a vulnerable in the moment, just be now, like you don't know what's coming up. Like, because there's so much value in that. And I agree, like that just, there's ways to hear somebody in a way that, is so much more meaningful when it's not like, what do you think about this? Or, you know, or tell me what you do, you know, like, because we've been taught, everybody has been taught to do this elevator pitch, right? To answer, what do you do? And that we're so dimensional, people are dimensional, you know, that answering that same question over and over again with this like pitchy sort of like, elevator pitch. It's just not how we connect as humans. And I think people are nervous. They're thinking about it. Like I've watched people that kind of memorize things like in public speaking and stuff.
Yeah, is that
and then they
premeditated? Is that premeditated? Yeah.
Yeah, and then they forget a part, and then they're super nervous.
Like, oh my God.
Oh yeah, because but just being in the moment. No, I'm here to connect. And
Yeah.
oh, cool. Who knows what question's coming up?
Which is actually one of the reasons why when they have the question on their plate, they're not allowed to turn it over until it's their turn to actually answer the question.
Nice.
And that was exactly my point, that I'm like, I don't want you to like sit here and now waste the entire lunch on you trying to figure out what the answer should be, because there's no right or wrong answer. It's your answer. It's your perspective. It's your thought, your idea. And that's how we get to know you. You know what I'm saying? By you just being in a space of pure honesty and clarity, and this is who you are. And again, also by explaining a little bit of why you feel that way versus just answering the question, lets us know a little bit more about who you are, right? And the perspective of why you see things that way.
They get to ask. That's the second part of the question.
Yeah, well, we'll always sort of like dig a little bit.
Be my new best friend.
You can't just be like yes, no, or like blue. No, like we want to be like, okay, blue, great. Why blue? Like, what was it about blue that made you?
Why is a very powerful. I'm a huge advocate. Everybody that watches knows this. I'm a huge advocate of why questions, because. The way that I look at it is like you have what friends, like they know what you do. Your closest relationships and friends are your why friends. They know why you do it.
Absolutely.
And the faster we get to why in relationships, the more you feel connected to somebody. Now,
100%.
There's a wrong way to ask why questions. Like you don't want to like start, why that? Like you just generally want to, if you have a general curiosity for people, like these are the type of questions that bind us.
Absolutely.
So I love why questions.
And I think sometimes too, it's important to allow people to share their story, because without it being a specific question, just by asking somebody like, tell me a little bit, like, where do you come from? And, share something. It also gives you a little bit more insight into why they are the way they are. You know what I'm saying?
And maybe even like they're struggling to answer the question. So like the why could be, okay, here's why this is a hard question for me to answer, because you know, and then share that. But like you can really feel a person in that moment of like going into their own why.
Absolutely.
I love that.
Yeah.
Why do you think women need other women friends? Like, why is it so important? Why?
It's funny because one of the things that I get a lot, for example, with people that are like, oh, I don't need more friends. I have enough, like, oh, I don't need more girlfriends.
Yes.
It's not about needing more girlfriends. It's about needing that support system, that female energy. I think what happens too is because we have our groups of friends, and again, it's like stepping out of your comfort zone. Your friends are your comfort zone. Your friends know you. Again, it's being back to like feeling challenged a little bit, and putting yourself in a position of understanding that what you're going through, other people are going through it, or other people went through it. And our friends, our small group of friends, like I said, that's your comfort zone, right? For me, it's like these are the girls that know me. They know me well. I don't need to try hard. I just need to be there and be present and have fun. It's great. When you step into an organization like Lix's Sister, it is going to make you a little bit uncomfortable. You are being in a group of a lot of women that you don't know. I think we always go back of, well, what if I don't like her? Well, what? No, you're not going to like everybody. You're not supposed to like everybody, right? Like some people are going to become your best friends for life. Some people are going to become your business partners. Some people are only going to be there for you on that Sunday of the month for the luncheon, and you probably won't even talk or see them again unless you get them for a sister date. And so again, it's important to surround yourself with female energy, because we were put in this earth to literally thrive together. Like this is how we grow and we evolve as women, and it's important again for us to surround ourselves with different types of women, right? For us to always be like, first of all, we're not alone. That's not the point. There's a lot of people that feel alone, and you'd be surprised how many more friends I have that feel alone, even though they have that really close knit group of friends that evolve into an organization like Lipstick Sister. And even though they don't know her that well, or they don't know that much about her just yet, that female energy that they're receiving from all those strangers is like life-changing.
And even, I don't think it's as binary as like or not like. I think that, like, in the moment someone can say something and it could trigger you or affect you, inspire you, and then some others, I don't totally connect to that. And even like I've met people that I didn't like, I felt like I had an energy of, because I didn't have a better way of explaining it, that I didn't like them. But now I'm just like, we were in the same moment in time. Like we just weren't there together. And we didn't have time to like sit down and really reflect and like find the other connection. Because I think honestly, there's probably something in every human being, and not just women, that we could connect to. Again, provided that they're not like doing hateful acts. Like I personally couldn't find a lot to connect with someone if they're like hatefully pursuing acts of violence or just
or shaming.
That's a little. Well, it's not a little. That was tough for me. That's not something that I'm inviting into my life.
Zero tolerance. 100%.
But being around people, other women that like have different viewpoints, like. Again, that's a way for you to understand yours more, or like maybe yours was a little on shaky ground, you know, and you get to go, ooh, you know, that was something that was challenging. I need to think about how I'm articulating this thing that's important to me because that actually challenged me a little bit.
And it's valuable information. I mean, another thing that I always tell the girls, you know, we do the sister dates. We select random sister dates for the girls to go on to 2 a month. And it's important because there's a lot of people that are very different. I know I am. I'm horrible at small chat. Even though people immediately, they're like, oh my God, you must be so social, because I am the most antisocial person in the universe.
I'm not. I don't like small.
I get really uncomfortable in large like events. I get really uncomfortable with small talk. So I don't function at like, I am not at my highest vibration when I am in large groups of people versus when I am in a one-on-one. And so I really wanted the girls to give themselves an opportunity of, if somebody rubbed you the wrong way in the sense of like, you're like, yeah, she's not my cup of tea, or I didn't care for, but then you got a sister date and you have to go on it, and yes, it's uncomfortable, and then yes, you're probably in the car going like, oh God, I have to sit with this woman for an hour. And then you get there and then you walk out and you were like, what just happened? Like, that was the most incredible, exceptional encounter that I've had. And again, it's like, always give space and opportunity, right, for something new to happen in your life, because I bet you that 90% of the time it'll be shockingly good.
I just think even on a silly surface level, like, this takes a lot of work, like, right, like hair products and all this stuff like that we don't. It's just ridiculous, the nonsense that, like, if you're super feminine and how what goes into this. So it's nice to have other women to kind of chit chat about even that silly stuff. Like,
absolutely.
What do you do when your hair won't curl? Like that stuff.
Everything.
In that regards, would you be acceptable to a trans woman joining?
Absolutely. I mean, I think, especially this past 2 years, the transgender culture has grown so much because they're fighting so hard for their identity. And I feel like if there's somebody that identifies themselves as a female, then yeah, absolutely. This is a female-based organization. So yeah, 100%.
But men have their own groups. This is like...
Men have their own groups, and they have their own space, and they have their own way of communicating and expressing themselves. And so that's a separate, a whole separate thing. But no, we would absolutely take in a female transgender for sure.
Awesome. Well, I think since we're two women sitting down on this couch in this space and time, that we have to talk a little bit about abortion, because we just have to. It's up. Do you have anything that you just want to lead with? I've been talking about it. I actually was talking about it on the last show, but I'll share.
Again, I am all about women. I'm a pro-woman person, so I do believe that it's a woman's right to make that decision. I feel like nobody knows but you if that moment in time, if it's the right time for you, if it's, and again, I feel like if you're going to bring a human into this world, for me, I feel like the smart decision is, if I am not in a space where I can provide not just financially but the emotional support and the spiritual support in a way that I am going to give this soul an incredible life, then I feel like my choice would be to not do it. I would hate for anybody to take that choice away from me. So, and again, it's a super personal. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm just saying, for me personally, I would hate not to be able to have that choice.
I don't think any woman wants to make the choice to terminate a pregnancy.
Ever.
A pregnancy, and I'm using the word very specifically, a pregnancy. But it's still their right. It's still their right. And even, really, it's religion that's gotten in the way of trying to overturn Roe versus Wade, because when you track back who's really involved, there's something there in their culture. And so even if that's the case, it's like, why are you letting the government make that decision? I mean, we've
Absolutely.
Where is this division of church and state at this point? But I don't think a man that sits in an office that has a right to tell any woman across this country or anywhere what to do with their body. I don't, and it's not as if women are using this as a form of birth control. You know, like it's not something. It's not a choice that is taken lightly, but it's their choice.
Right.
And
again,
I'm not visiting any of those states that are taking that right away. I'm sorry. I mean, I like to travel, and I'm not going there. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, there again.
And anybody that wants to come from the states here, come. Yeah.
So not going back there. No, I think again there are so many variables that come with it. First of all, it's got to be a super emotional moment for a woman's life. Like I said, like you said, it's not a right or wrong, right? And even if it's the right decision for you, it's still not an easy decision. You know what I'm saying? Like, these women are still going to go through something that is seriously traumatizing and shameful to some extent, because there's so much back and forth between being right or wrong. So, but it's still, at the end of the day, what it comes down to is it should be her choice.
Yeah. And I don't know why this popped in my head, but the same person that's usually saying, no abortions and uses language like you're killing a baby and all this stuff, also talks about God works in mysterious ways. Well, does he? I mean, how do you know? Like, maybe this is the way that someone comes into, a spiritual ground because of how they feel after this, or the situation that put them in the situation. Like, I don't know how you can say that and then try to govern and say, absolutely, this is what is going to be done to you. I mean, I hope some of the men that are involved, have a situation sooner where their rights are depended on, so they understand like how big of a deal this is. I mean, it's a big deal. It creates a situation where women in this country are second-class citizens, and I just no.
And again, it's not something to be shameful
and to be clear, we're talking about abortion. Like, any situation that creates a situation for somebody to be treated like a second-class citizen. So there are lots of other injustices. It's not just this one, but I'm not for it.
Yeah, because it goes back to having rights. At the end of the day, it's our right. It should be our right.
Yeah. All right. We'll get a little heavy in here. It's just,
I'm like, shot.
It's hard. Like this. I mean, it's hard to sit back. Like, this is there's so much in our news frequently that is so troubling and so full of trauma. And I don't know. Like, I get. Not confused, but I don't know which. I want to do something, and then another something hits, and you're like, I don't know which one to participate, which is why I'm talking about systems today. It's like, just get really clear about what you can do and like where you can show up and occupy space and for the things that you believe in. And like, there's a lot of them right now. And just pick them. Pick the one that you can do something about and go and do it. Yeah. All right, let's change the tone. Okay, so we, as mentioned, we used to ask random questions.
We get to play now?
Yeah, we get to play. So we're going to play with the relational.
Want to stream to the next?
Oh, yeah. Yes. That's what it's all about here. So these are our relational dice. One has all of our senses on it, plus body language, because that's really important. And the other one's meant to be a prompt to like talk about that thing. So it says wild, swap, dare, act out, okay or not. And I thought, because I know you watched Game of Thrones, and I did too, that we would do this
unwillingly. But yes.
We would do this in relation to Game of Thrones. So there might be some spoiler alerts in this, because she's watched all the shows, so have I, and including the finale.
I would think by now everybody has.
I have some friends that there's so much discussion.
Yeah,
there's so much discussion around the show and this season not being great. That I think new people that have never watched any. I have a couple friends that started watching the older seasons.
Really?
Yeah. So.
Well, maybe that was the reason why they did that. Yeah. They were trying to attract like a whole new audience just to go back and watch it.
I don't know. I have no idea. But yeah, so we're gonna whatever. So all these are meant to do is prompt like, okay, we can talk about this. So we're gonna talk about something Game of Thrones. So we might talk about a smell. Like what that might have smelled like. Oh, I know. That was the worst one to use as an example. Okay, so thankfully we got taste, and then the other dice is swap, so we could like swap stories about what comes up with taste. Game of Thrones.
This is weird, but all
Okay.
I think about right now is just pork. Like I just see them with, like eating, just like there's so much food involved with like heavy meat
Oh yeah.
throughout the whole show all the time. that
And there
right
wasn't
now, for some reason I'm just like,
refrigeration. But they had.
I just have like grease dropping down my throat, meat, and like.
Oh, do you remember what was it a couple episodes ago? The redheaded guy.
I love him.
I know he's one of my favorite characters. I'm glad that he was still living in the end.
Yeah.
How he just like took that.
Oh, just like gulps it and it's like everywhere. Yeah. Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, that's what.
I think it's a weird show to kind of think about. It looks historic, but it's not. There's like zombies. Right. It's like, but if you kind of take it as a historical sort of fictional historical thing, and you're like, I think about refrigeration and things like that. Like, what did
all the hygienic part or all the hygienic aspects of the show or so? Because even the super wealthy people with all their beautiful gowns and whatever, like.
They're also like head to toe in a lot of leather.
I love it. Did you remember how like when they brush their teeth and they just put the little thingy in like a little tub of water for like a second and they're like, and they put it back and they take it? I'm like, yeah, you did not brush your teeth. like there's still a whole bunch of bacteria. You just like, oh, God.
So this is not an era that you'd want to go back and live in. You would not want to live
not
in.
At
Who
all.
knows what really?
1940s is my jam.
Yeah, I would
like
want to go.
That's more of like, yeah.
I kind of want to go back that far. Okay, hearing. Okay, let's swap stories on the weirdest sound or thing that we heard. We could take this in two different directions. We could talk about what people are talking about on the show, like it's the weirdest thing you heard, like the weirdest prediction, or just a jarring sort of sound that happened.
The dragon noise for me. I feel like that's huge. Just hearing that massive animal, just like what if had that been real, what that would have felt like.
Yeah.
Just like sitting there and just having this massive roar coming somewhere behind you, and you still can't see it, but you can hear him.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't remember any conversations that I would have been like, oh. I mean, there's a ton, obviously, but I'm saying like nothing that pops into my head.
Would the sound of the Walking Dead of all the White Walkers coming? Like, what does that sound like?
What was that sound like? Was there sound?
Yeah.
I don't remember. Like I remember them doing the horn thing of like they're coming, like woo, whatever, like that I remember. Yeah. And that's also kind of terrifying.
Yes.
Because you know what's coming.
Yes, you do.
And I think that's terrifying in even in history, right? Because that sound has always been for, hey, bad people are coming, or like.
What about if you were on the ground and the ground in one direction is just being torched. I mean, the sound of like fire. I mean, fire has a sound, right? We've been around a campfire. The sound of like massive fire.
Quickly, yeah.
I mean, I can't imagine. Like, think about our friends that have been in like the Malibu fires and things like what that massive amount of fire.
The sound
close to you, like what that has roaring. To sound like. I mean, how terrifying that is. And then to feel it, and then to feel like the heat of it, and not know where to go, and stuff is falling. Like those.
That's gonna be one of the scariest things because, like you said, it's almost like it's touching all your senses, right? Yeah. You can hear it, you can feel it because of the heat. You can't see anything because it's dark. Like I'm pretty sure you can't like the smell. So there's like it's gotta be terrifying.
It does. You would think that's gotta touch on our senses. Let's do one more. See what else we can get into. Oh, it's hearing again. I'm just going to turn. Okay, body language. Okay, this should be a good one to talk about. Body language. I can just talk about body language in general in the last episode. Just weird. Like it was so forced, and like there, they did a great job in special effects. Yay, they nerded out on special effects. Okay, but to be with these characters for so long and then to have everything squished into like moments where it's like, okay, just a minute ago, he's defensive and his language is like this, and he's like defended his queen, and then cut to scene 2 minutes later, and he's killing her. I mean, like. I told you there was no spoilers. I didn't say who. She knows what I'm talking about.
The only thing that felt very real to me and genuine of all that, if you speak of body language, was I can't remember the names, but Cersei and her brother.
Yeah, Jamie,
Cersei and Jamie, and they're actually under the rubble, but they're like embracing each other.
Yeah.
That was, I think, for me, at the end of the day, the most like honest ending, because that truly was who they were, and regardless of anything, they ended up together, like they always had been, and in an embrace, in love, like they always had been. And I feel like that was the only thing. Everything else just felt so. Snow just confused the heck out of me.
Yeah.
Because, like you said, it was like he was in love with her one time, he's killing her the next, and then he's regretting it, and he's being weak and confused, and oh my God, there was so much going on. I was just like, figure it out, dude. Like, where?
He's supposed to be the hero.
Like, he was supposed to be like the king of the 7 like, or 6, because I always figure that Sansa would get her own.
Oh, you did? You predicted that?
Yeah. I always figured she deserved her independence. The poor girl had gone through so much that I was like, please, just. The only thing she asked was for the North to be independent, and I hoped and I believed that she would get that. Everything else was just like, what just happened?
Totally.
Right?
Very strange.
Like,
I think the other real moment, and just I felt it. It looked like the body language, everything about it was Tyrion and Jamie. So when he releases him from the camp and he's telling him how he's never treated him differently. He's loved him. He's never felt, treated him like a monster. Like that was. I cried. That was a really
he's also
touching.
My favorite. He's been my favorite character.
He's an amazing actor.
He's been the most authentic, vulnerable, like
so cool.
straightforward, just real character. Emotional. Even in the end,
like actually his character follows through to the end.
Yeah.
I think one of the only ones. And then the other body language thing that kind of popped in is the dragon and Dany and the end, how he kind of lifts her. It's weird that the dragon ends up having more or exhibits more character than anybody else in the end, because he torches the throne. Like, so the dragon's smart enough to know that the symbol of the throne is what just killed her and not Jon. And so he torches the throne and then lifts her away.
Lifts her away and takes her.
And it was, I'm actually glad it's over. I'm really glad it's over. I wish that, we were talking about this off camera, like, I wish that it left us more hopeful.
With more hope, it was so dark it was so dark and gruesome and evil, and it's like I just wish that like good would prevail, and that everything, like I kind of wish for that like Disney like happy ending, because it had been so bad that
I want to know where Arya
goes. At the end, just give us that hope that, and the world was good at the end, right? And it smelled good.
We know it's not.
There was sunlight and like, oh God, just it
was a little dark.
Wishful thinking.
Yes.
Not good.
I mean, we have enough of this in our real life. That's what I was thinking, but whatever. I mean, awesome special effects. I'm going to just say that over and over again. But as a person that cares about how people are interacting with each other and, what that looks like, you took some favorite characters that have been with people for 8 years, and just condensed them into like, I don't know, just like background almost. Like it didn't feel real. And as one of my friends pointed out that's in TV, she's like, it was a pacing issue, Stephanie. Like we were used to seeing things and like taking time for scenes and things to development. And when they squish that in, and like cut to scenes really quickly, and you're like, wait a second, like they're not going to talk about this more, you know, like it just felt very,
And I think Dany for me was the biggest disappointed, because going back to the whole topic of women and the importance of being true to yourself and really understanding who you are, for somebody that spent so many years throughout the show talking about abolishing slavery and this and that, and obviously, getting rid of Cersei, which yes, it should have happened, but she ends the show proving that she was no different. Like she allowed her ego to take over, just as Cersei had. She allowed basically her desire and drive for, and her insecurity, because at the end of the day, the thought that remotely that in any way, shape or form Snow could take charge and become, like, her insecurity took over, that she just needed to cause bad and do bad things.
And even seeing, like, from like, people are laughing, like, what are they talking about?
You don't know anything. Did you even watch the show, really?
No, but like the moment where they're after the White Walkers war and they won and there's celebrating, and she's like witnessing him connect with people, and instead of like, you'd hope for humanity, and I know it's not a real show, but like you'd hope for humanity.
But if she truly loved him, she should have embraced that.
Well, not even just love him, but like if her mission was to liberate people, and you're like, oh, here's somebody that really
could do that,
connecting with people, like the mission should be bigger than my ego. Like the mission should
That's
be.
my point. Like it became all about her and her power and her ego and her boo.
All right, so that's the relational dice, Game of Thrones style. I have to do that with another show, but that was fun. Anyhow, okay, we'll switch gears into something else. So obviously, talk about exceptional human encounters on here, and so I'd like to hear from everybody in terms of what is that. When I say the phrase, what does that mean to you? And then if you have one that happened recently and you're willing to share like what that experience was, then please do so.
For me, exceptional encounter means that somebody leaves me either inspired or shocked in a good way, or moved, or they provoked some sort of meaningful emotion. Mm-hmm. I'm very lucky because, again, I believe very much that alike attracts alike, and I do believe that because I have such high frequency in my energy and everything that I do, that I continue to sort of like pull those women. So for me, I feel very fortunate because I feel like I have a lot of them sometimes. Some, of course, more meaningful than other ones. Not necessarily at every gathering, but sometimes. I feel like it's more when I meet new women. Mm-hmm. There's an interview process that has to happen through Lipstick Sister because it's by invitation only. So there's an interview process that I do first. I sit down one-on-one, and I want to make sure that that things are aligned, that she's in the right space, that she's ready to sort of, again, be surrounded by a very diverse group of women. And so
probably set the expectations
make sure that
too.
they know what they could potentially be walking into, and who we are and what we expect of her. And I can't tell you the amount of times, I want to say out of like 10 of them, at least 8 for sure, I get back in my car and I'm just like, wow, like incredible, right? Again, some of those have developed and turned into very close personal friends of mine as well. Not just, my sisters. Some have just remained my sisters, but almost the majority of the time that I sit down with these women that are drawn towards an organization like this, I have an exceptional encounter. Mm-hmm. I haven't had one super recent. And then, like everything in life too, I think, for me, my husband was an exceptional experience. Meeting him, I walked into that date. You always walk into a date not knowing what to expect, obviously. Mm-hmm. But it was also one of those things where, halfway through our car ride, I was just like, this is an exceptional human being. Yeah. Like, how did I just get so lucky to be sitting in this car at the same time with this human? Mm-hmm. Like, again, online.
How did you meet him? How were you?
We met through a friend of ours who she had originally reached out to join the Lipstick Sister chapter, and then she also happened to be a matchmaker, and she was friends with him, and so she, after the interview, she was like, Are you single? She's like, I don't see a ring in your finger. Are you single? And I was like, yeah. She's like, I have your husband. And I'm like, okay, well, you don't really know me that well. But she's like, no. And
nice.
She was right.
She's good at what she does.
But those are the type of exceptional experiences that have stayed with me. Mm-hmm. And I have obviously more, but
yeah, I mean, I think everybody defines this differently, but I think the common ground that I keep hearing, because we started asking everybody this season, is it's unexpected. Like exceptional is kind of something that's like, whoa, like it took you off your your kind of takes you out of your boundaries a little bit. Like
whoa,
you're like, whoa, that just happened. Like I feel you, I hear you. Like and I think that's a part of it too. Like you really felt the person, you saw the person, and you feel like they felt you too. Like there was just something that transpired. I call it grace sometimes. I don't think grace is kind of a word that's been hijacked by religion, but I actually think grace, two human beings or multiple, or could be 3 people could experience it, but I think grace is something that can be exchanged between 2 people and them not necessarily.
And it can happen with anybody and anywhere. Like, and it also, I don't feel like an exceptional encounter necessarily needs to be like, oh, we sat at lunch for an hour and deeply connected. It could be, you know, you can meet somebody on the sidewalk for about 2 minutes and that could be exceptional. There was something about the way that they looked at you or the way that they communicated something to you, or just by standing next to somebody, their energy could be so strong and so powerful that even just that alone, you're just like, again, you go back to that, like, whoa, like what just happened. So it can happen anywhere and with
it happens
anybody.
a lot with strangers. I mean, a lot of moments that we've talked about on the show have been Uber rides.
Oh, absolutely.
Because you're not expecting it, and all of a sudden you're just like hyper focused with this person in kind of an intimate exchange of like, you get me, I get you, like we're supposed to be here right now.
And that's why it's so important also to disconnect, right? Because it's like, if the more that you are still again on that little device, it's the more that you're robbing yourself from having these types of opportunities, right? Because you're not allowing yourself to create that space for somebody exceptional to have a moment with you.
I agree. I mean, the studio's downtown. You guys have heard me talk about this. The studio's downtown. I live downtown. I walk a lot. I'm always on the sidewalk. And it's gotten to the point where it's like 3 out of 5 heads down like this and not seeing you. And you start to see that same person over again. I'm like, I'm sharing this world with you. Like, we live, it seems, or we work very close by each other. We are actually sharing space and time. And this is more important. You know, it's funny to me, even like in elevators, same thing, like same person on the phone all the time. I'm like, hi.
Even say hi.
Like, hi. You know, like, I'm here too. It's comical, but it's also like, I think we're missing it, and I think that because of the hypersensitivity to that's not the right phrase. That's not what I want to say. There's a lot of bad stuff that's happening in the world, and maybe generations before us will say, oh, there's always been bad stuff, and the only thing that's different in our
we have more access to it.
We have more access to everything. Like, you can find the darkest of the dark things that really just, you know that they're wrong, and you can find it in any place.
Yeah, because we have things that have been happening forever. It's not nothing. A lot of things are not new. Now we just have more access to it because now we're in this constant state of, like, you can find anything, you know, through the internet and anywhere in the world. Like, you're just not finding things that happen in the United States. You're finding things that are happening all over the world now because of, you know, the social media platforms. But I think also, going back to the disconnecting, it's like, I've seen people at restaurants sitting at the bar having dinner by themselves, literally next to another person that's having dinner by herself or himself, and both of them are fork.
And that's probably why they came out. Like, you could eat alone at home. Like,
like, it's like, what like a missed opportunity of potentially meeting and connecting with somebody incredible.
But I think this is why this happened. I'm glad that you brought that up. So, yes, okay, I would argue, and someone could tell me that I'm wrong, and that's fine. We can have a good conversation about it. I do think there's more bad stuff happening in the world right now. And I think the system that we participate in that delivers that stuff to us is also making it trendy for us to participate in a way that's bad too. So it's like, you know, just the appetite for, like, I'm going to watch the news and get outraged and then start a fight with somebody. The system of online dating that productizes everybody, that is more of a system to rule people out than rule people in. So if you're just letting that system sort of run you, and you know that you want to connect with people, and you're like, oh, I'll take risk and like go out and sit at a restaurant. Your system, the system that you're participating in, is more about ruling somebody out. So you probably went through 10 reasons why, if not more, why you shouldn't talk to the person that's sitting next to you doing the same thing. Instead of just going, hi, you're a human, I'm a human, we're in the same city and stay at this restaurant. Hi. And just ruling them in by taking a little bit of a risk, right?
Don't become a product of your environment. That's what I always say. Like, you are the only person that can choose not to become a product of your environment. And like, I sat at dinner at Cicconi's a couple of weeks back, and the same, like, I try not to be on my phone. And when I'm alone, sometimes you feel like maybe you need to be on your phone, because otherwise you're like, who's the loser having dinner alone? It's like, I don't care. So I just sit there and I just eat, and I have my champagne and I have my meal, and I'm perfectly happy. And then there was a lady that was sitting next to me, and she's like with this big overcoat and a baseball hat, and she's got like her calamari like me. Like, we both order calamari, and then we both order champagne. But she's in a literally baseball cap, like big coat. And I could see by her hands and stuff that she had to be like late in her 70s. And there was something about me immediately that was like, I go back to like, oh my God, is she eating alone because she doesn't have any family? Is she all alone? Like, does she have no one at home? And immediately I go into this space and I'm like, just reach out, like ask. And of course, the immediate thing that I noticed was always pay attention, right? Like there's a way that you can always ask questions without feeling like you're being weird or anything. And again, she ordered the same thing I did. We both ordered champagne. And so I looked at her and I'm like, oh, look, it looks like we're on the same page. We both love, calamari fritti. And she was like, oh, I love calamari fritti. And I was like, great, me too. And it started a conversation. We sat at the bar for 2.5 hours.
Yes.
I knew that she was a Norwegian ex-dancer, super famous back in the 40s, 30s, 40s, and 50s.
How cool.
She lived like everything. I got up. She was driving this beautiful old white Rolls Royce, and her meter was coming up. And she's like, I'm having so much fun, but my meter's coming up. I would love to stay and talk to you. And I'm like, let me go put money in your meter. So I got up and I went and I put money in her meter, and I came back and we sat for another hour and a half and talked. And
so this is an exceptional human encounter. I'm glad we got to this.
Yeah. So because I was thinking of like what's happened recently that would be like super meaningful. That was super meaningful. And it's funny because I was gonna go put money in the meter, and she's like, oh, here, let me give you money. And she pulls out a purse and she pulls out like the old coin, you know what I'm saying, like those little round, and she opens it and she's got like 100 quarters in there. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm like, I can put the card. And she's like, no, she's like, just take it. I'm so cute. I'm like walking with this little like old school like 1930s like coin holder. And I mean, I walked her to her car at the end, and we said goodbye. And then I said, I would love for us to like get together and have lunch. And it was just such an incredible, because, she told me about her husband dying, and she told me about moving, from Norway to America back in that day, and about being, just a woman in the industry. And again, going back to having no rights and how you get treated as a bombshell, and you're obviously dumb because you're a woman and you're in the acting or dancing industry. And it was so magical. And then I went home and I Googled her, and I was just like, oh my God, like that's amazing that I just spent 2.5 hours talking to this person. It was, I
love it.
And again, had I not reached out, she would have walked away from me, and I would have never known that I was sitting next to somebody that was just so incredible.
I think that the moral, the teaching moment of this story is you could have ruled out, like, so the first part of the story was like she was kind of covered up and dark and stuff, and you could have just like, okay, that's a sign she does not want to be approached. She's in public place, like, but you found something. You're like, I still, like, my energy is feeling like I want to connect with this person, like I want to connect. Yeah. So you looked for something, and it was the right something, and it made a 2-hour conversation, an encounter.
It was incredible.
Instead of so maybe I think the lesson is like look for that instead of like why not. And you could be wrong. Like I've definitely said hi to somebody, and it was like, nope, they're not wanting to talk right now.
Which is fine, but you made an effort.
Yeah, it happens all the time. I do rideshare quite a bit because when I moved downtown, I gave up my car. I'm too. And I actually love that I get this opportunity to kind of sit in someone else's car and talk. And sometimes people want to talk, and sometimes they don't. Sometimes I want to talk. Sometimes I don't. But putting that first hello out there just to kind of figure out what it is. It's like, it's not right or wrong. It's not personal against you. They didn't want to talk to you. It's just like, that's where you are right now. Yeah. That's what happened. But the more we do it, and I can't express this enough, and I think this is why your organization is so meaningful. It's like, we need to be in practice relating with each other, period, the end. Like, there is something about having so much tech involved in
human connection.
Between having so much tech involved between this that has created a situation where we're ruling people out more than we're ruling people in, and I find that to be a huge problem. So I like that story a lot.
Good.
It's an awesome story. Yeah, that was a great story. All right. Well, so there's one more thing that we get to do with each other in our time together on the teal couch. Is I like to issue a social challenge of the week. This is my way of saying, hey, let's have a relationship with learning. I'm not telling you what kind of experience you should have from this. It's very self-explorative. You can do it on your own. You can tell me about it, which I really love that when people do. I love it when I hear they're like, I did this, and this is what I learned. I love that. I can't express that enough. But or not, if you want to keep it private, that's totally cool. It's just meant to like be something that you can do to learn about yourself. So this is what I wrote down before the show, and I want to see if you have anything to add. So I'm definitely in this space of like systems, and I think it would be a good idea for us to like take out this is a journaling assignment, okay? To take out a pen and pad or use the computer. I don't care. I don't like the sight of my own.
I still have pen and paper.
Do you? I
still pen
actually
and paper.
like to touch pen and paper, but I hate the look of my own penmanship.
Yeah.
So sometimes the computer wins because I have terrible penmanship.
You're like, wait, what does that say?
Yeah.
You're like,
and that happens
I
all the
remember
time.
writing it, but what?
That happens all the time. I go to the grocery store with lists of like, well, I don't even know what that says. Like, I hope I got everything because I can't even read my own writing. Whatever, that's me. So I think it's like cool to inventory the systems that you're actively participating, and then check off like which ones you want to decrease how you're spending space in, and which ones you want to increase. And there's a lot of things that we don't think about, like how are you participating in like in environmental systems, like what do you do, are you recycling, these things, and get tough with your list, like write down racism. I mean, and be real honest about like what where you are, and maybe you think that you're not a racist, but yet there's some things that you're doing that you haven't took a hard look at, and it's like that's kind of racist, and I think this is maybe why you want to keep it private, and that's totally fine, but just be real about capitalism, the system, what political, religious, your own local communities. This is a tough socialist. I don't usually go this hard on this, but I think it's a good one. I'm going to do it because I'm thinking about it.
No, definitely.
What would you?
I just need to get in the car. I need to get in the car and process for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, it's easy for me to like think of the ones that I want to like reincorporate myself into. I kind of want to like explore the ones that I kind of maybe should weed myself out to that I just haven't thought enough about. It's giving me the right purpose to continue to be in those types of things. But
I talk a lot about like Amazon. I think participating as a consumer with Amazon, like I had to really stop. It's real hardcore. If I've like had to order from. I went from ordering a lot every month. I mean, I had a really bad habit. I'm not gonna.
My husband. I mean, Amazon exists because of my husband. Like, if my husband stopped shopping on Amazon, Amazon would go broke.
Well, can we make that happen? Can we make that happen?
So maybe it's how do I get my husband to stop?
So we're gonna launch a campaign. We're gonna launch a campaign for your husband. But no, I just think about how many businesses, small businesses, mid-sized businesses that have been put out of business.
Oh, absolutely.
Because of Amazon. I think about I've managed vendors that are been on the platform and how they. Once they see you're successful, they try to manufacture it, so they're directly competing against people they've put on, and then they take more margins against them. I mean, they've made it so hard for more people. It's wealth disparity. It's definitely a system that is creating more wealth disparity, and and that's what. I'm like, nope. And just the idea of like, do I need this? Just because it's so easy to put it in my basket and it's really cheap, like there's a cost to how that was made, and is it recyclable? All of these decisions that kind of go into that you don't think about when the equation is between woke and convenience. I will be the first to admit I picked some conveniences. And so Amazon for me was one of the ones that I had to
I don't shop online at all. I am the most anti-shopping online everything. Like I'm still like, I think it goes back to that. Like I feel like a good challenge would be disconnect, right? Don't go into like Amazon.com or whatever.com that you're gonna buy. Disconnect. Like go to the mall, go walk around, grab a coffee. Like window shop, maybe actually walk into a store and buy something, try something on, like give yourself that space to disconnect. Like that's for me, that's what I always continue to go back into. It's just like, you can order online and I guess that's easy, but then that's just keeping you on your desk in that chair or in the bed or on the couch for another like 3 hours when you could actually just get up and move your body and have your mind look at something else and read something else and touch something else and smell something else. Like just get out.
And maybe in that, I mean, I think even just our tech addictions, it's a system. It's a system that we're participating in is worth on this list, at the very least. And, I've said this a lot on the show, like advocating for turning off all the alerts on your phone, like allowing yourself to be in a situation where you are in your time is your responsibility and you're not being reactive to like this and this little buzz going off and now I got to look at this and that. No, you don't. Actually, you'll have less anxiety if you experience yourself not having to be so reactive.
Oh my God, 100%.
And that is a system that's meant to kind of keep you doing that. Like it's, you know.
Put yourself on timers. You know, be like, I'm only going to be in the computer for 2 hours. I'm only like, you know, my husband has this little thing where he had to put, you know, like he doesn't drink water ever, and I drink like 3 gallons a day. It's insane. So he literally put this little alarm, and the alarm will go up and it says drink, drink, drink. And so it's like if that's what it takes, do it. But like set up whether your like systems are being minimalized to where it's still meaningful and important, but not where it overpowers so much of your day or your time.
I hope what this list is going to do is help people have more awareness of like where they're spending their time, and what feels right to them and what does not. That even though it's heavy, and I want you to put heavy stuff on this list, and be aware of like it's not people so much, it's systems and how complex they are that creates, you know, how we react and interact with each other and the choices that we make. So inventorying those, I think is a good idea.
It's a great idea.
All right, so let's do it. That's the social challenge of the week. Make a list of all the systems that you participate in, and if you do it, I want to hear from you. If you want to keep it private, that's totally cool too. I appreciate that. I'm sure you'd want to hear too. Her social handles. There's 2 of them we put out there, and one we didn't talk so much about it because it's coming up at the Clever Women Club.
Yes.
And you can just reach out to her directly and ask what that is. But it's kind of a book club for clever women. It's another way to stay in learning with women.
Yes,
I think
100%.
That's a way to say it. But it's coming soon, right?
It's coming July. Yeah, so July we'll do the launch, and then by August we'll do our first book signing. So
I can't believe it's like halfway into the year already. It's crazy. All right, well that brings us to the end of our time together.
Thank you so much. That was awesome.
That was fun.
That was super fun.
I can't wait to hear more about what you're doing, and appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
Your social handles have been on the screen the whole time, and we'll share all the links to things that we talked about.
Wonderful. When
the show wraps. And that brings us to another edition of Relatable. I'm going to say the same thing that I always do. What are you doing today that you are contributing to an exceptional human encounter happening right now, today? See you next week.